They say the devil's in the details, but I've learned he's actually in the credit card statements. My name is William Mercer, and until 3 months ago I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. 39 years old, construction supervisor for Henderson and Associates, married to Jennifer for 15 years, father to Ben, who just turned 14. We lived in one of those cookie-cutter subdivisions outside Cleveland, where everyone knows everyone's business, and everyone pretends they don't. I should have known something was wrong when Jennifer started caring about her appearance again. Don't get me wrong, my wife was always attractive. Auburn hair, green eyes, the kind of smile that could sell insurance to a homeless man. But after 15 years of marriage and raising a teenager, she'd settled into that comfortable routine most couples fall into. Yoga pants on weekends, ponytail during the week, makeup only for special occasions. Then Daniel Hayes came back to town. He just wants to say hi, Jennifer told me one Tuesday evening in August. She was standing at the bathroom mirror, applying lipstick with the precision of a surgeon. We haven't seen each other in 5 years. Daniel Hayes. The name hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut, though I kept my expression neutral. Every man has that one guy from his wife's past who makes his skin crawl, and Daniel was mine. College boyfriend, the one who got away before she met me. Rich family, fancy car, the kind of guy who wore designer jeans to barbecues and somehow made everyone else feel underdressed. That's nice, I said, adjusting my work boots by the door. Where are you meeting? Just coffee, downtown, nothing special. Nothing. That word would haunt me for the next 3 months. I kissed her goodbye and drove to the Henderson job site, but my mind wasn't on concrete foundations and electrical permits. It was on the way Jennifer had checked her reflection 3 times before leaving, and how she'd chosen her best jeans for a casual coffee with an old friend. Jake Lawton, my best friend since high school, noticed my mood immediately when I stopped by Murphy's Tavern after work. You look like someone stole your lunch money, Jake said, sliding a beer across the bar. He'd been tending bar at Murphy's for 8 years, and he had a talent for reading faces. Jennifer's having coffee with Daniel Hayes. Jake's eyebrows shot up. The college prince? Thought he moved to California. Apparently he's back, just to say hi. Uh-huh. Jake wiped down a glass with more force than necessary. And you're okay with this? I shrugged, but we both knew the answer. Jake had been around during the early years of my marriage, when Jennifer would occasionally mention Daniel in ways that made me want to punch walls. The successful startup he'd launched, the house in Malibu, the European vacation photos on social media. It's just coffee, I said, echoing Jennifer's words. Sure it is. And I'm just a bartender who happens to own a Ferrari. When I got home that night, Jennifer was already in bed, reading a romance novel with the kind of shirtless cover that made me question the literary merit of modern publishing. She looked up when I entered, and I noticed something that made my stomach clench. A small mark on her neck, just below her ear. Reddish-purple, about the size of a dime. How was coffee? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Fine. Good to catch up. She turned a page without looking at me. He's doing well. Tech consulting now. That's great. I sat on the edge of the bed, pretending to untie my boots while studying the mark on her neck. What's that on your neck? Her hand flew to the spot instinctively. What? Oh, I must have pinched it somehow. You know how clumsy I am. Jennifer wasn't clumsy. In 15 years of marriage, I'd seen her trip exactly twice, and both times she'd been wearing heels on ice. I nodded and headed to the bathroom, where I stood under the shower spray and tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Old friends catch up. People get mysterious marks on their necks from perfectly innocent activities. Wives dress up for coffee because it makes them feel good about themselves. But as I lay in bed that night, listening to Jennifer's breathing beside me, one thought kept circling through my mind like a vulture. Nothing doesn't leave hickeys on your neck. The next morning, Jennifer was up before her alarm, humming in the shower. She emerged wearing a turtleneck despite the August heat, and when I mentioned it, She claimed the air conditioning at her office was too strong. "Will you be late tonight?" she asked, buttering toast with unusual enthusiasm. "Depends on the electrical inspection. Why?" "No reason, just wondering." Another lie. Jennifer always had reasons for everything. She was an HR manager at Consolidated Insurance, a woman who planned her grocery lists 3 days in advance and color-coded our family calendar. She didn't ask casual questions. At the job site, I found myself checking my phone every few minutes, though I couldn't say what I was looking for. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Working through lunch today. Busy with new employee orientation." I called her office 20 minutes later. "Consolidated Insurance, this is Rebecca." "Hi, Rebecca, this is Will Mercer. Is Jennifer available?" "Oh, hi, Mr. Mercer. Jennifer's at lunch right now. Should I have her call you back?" I hung up without answering. That evening, Jennifer came home with takeout from Antonio's, my favorite Italian place. She was trying too hard, and we both knew it. "How was work?" I asked as we sat down to eat. "Crazy busy. You know how it is with new hires." She twirled spaghetti around her fork with mechanical precision. "How was your day?" "Fine. The electrical passed inspection." We ate in silence for several minutes. Ben was at soccer practice, leaving us alone in the house for the first time in weeks. In the old days, we might have used the opportunity for intimacy, or at least meaningful conversation. Now it felt like we were two actors who'd forgotten their lines. Jennifer's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it and smiled, a small, private smile that cut through me like a blade. "Who's texting?" I asked. "Just Melissa from work, office gossip." She turned the phone face down without showing me the screen. That night, I lay awake listening to the sounds of our house, the refrigerator humming, the neighbor's dog barking at shadows, and around 2 a.m, the soft buzz of Jennifer's phone vibrating against her nightstand. She reached for it immediately, as if she'd been waiting. The screen's glow illuminated her face as she read the message, and I watched through barely open eyes as she typed a response. Her fingers moved quickly, familiarly, like she'd sent similar messages many times before. When she finally put the phone down, I heard her sigh, a sound of contentment that she hadn't made for me in months. Nothing doesn't text at 2 a.m., I thought. But someone was texting my wife, and she was texting back. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. While Jennifer showered, I opened our laptop and logged into our joint credit card account. We'd shared the password for years, her maiden name plus our anniversary date. She'd never had reason to change it. I scrolled through the recent charges, looking for anything unusual. Gas stations, grocery stores, Ben's soccer fees, the usual domestic expenses. Then I found it. Hampton Inn, downtown Cleveland. August 15th, $127.50, the day Jennifer had coffee with Daniel. My hands trembled as I clicked on the transaction details. Check-in, 11:47 a.m. Check-out, 2:23 p.m., 3.5 hours. Nothing doesn't book hotel rooms on joint credit cards. I printed the statement and stared at it for several minutes, the paper shaking in my hands. 15 years of marriage, and it came down to this: a hotel charge that proved my wife was having an affair with her college boyfriend. But instead of rage, I felt something else entirely: clarity. Jennifer thought I was stupid. She thought I wouldn't notice the hickeys, the lies, the hotel charges on our shared account. She thought she could have her cake and eat it too, maintaining her stable marriage while rekindling her romance with the one who got away. She was wrong. I folded the statement and put it in my toolbox, right next to the receipts for materials and the inspection reports. Evidence, documentation, the foundation for everything that would come next. Because if Jennifer wanted to play games, I was going to show her what a real player looked like. The thing about construction work is that it teaches you patience. You can't rush a foundation. You can't skip steps in electrical work. And you definitely can't build something lasting without the right materials and careful planning. I approached my marriage's destruction the same way I approached any major project. Methodically, thoroughly, and with attention to detail that would make my foreman proud. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a student of my wife's deception. I noted every late night at the office, every mysterious phone call, every time she claimed to be somewhere she wasn't. The pattern emerged quickly. Tuesdays and Thursdays were Daniel days. Jennifer had always been predictable, but now her predictability worked against her. Every Tuesday, she'd dress slightly better than necessary. Every Thursday, she'd work through lunch. And every Tuesday and Thursday evening, she'd be unusually affectionate, as if her guilt demanded some form of compensation. I started carrying a small notebook, jotting down details like a detective building a case. August 22nd. New perfume. Or August 24th. Claimed to work late, but office parking lot was empty at 7 p.m. August 29th. Another hotel charge, different location. The hardest part wasn't gathering evidence. It was pretending everything was normal. Kissing her goodbye in the mornings, asking about her day, making love to her on the nights when her guilt made her particularly attentive, all while knowing she'd been with another man hours earlier. Jake noticed my mood deteriorating during our regular Thursday night drinks. "You look like someone who's been chewing nails," he said, refilling my beer. "What's eating you?" I glanced around Murphy's Tavern, making sure no one was listening. The place was mostly empty except for a few regulars watching baseball on the mounted TV. "Hypothetically," I said, "if you discovered your wife was cheating, what would you do?" Jake set down the glass he'd been cleaning. "Hypothetically?" "Hypothetically. I'd probably start by making sure I wasn't imagining things. Then I'd document everything. Then I'd decide whether to fight for the marriage or fight for the divorce." "And if you chose option 2? Jake leaned across the bar, lowering his voice. "I'd make sure I came out ahead. Emotionally, financially, socially. I'd make sure everyone knew who the victim was and who the villain was." That's pretty cold. Cheating is pretty cold, too. That weekend, while Jennifer took Ben school shopping, I conducted a thorough search of our house. I wasn't looking for love letters or hidden photos. I was looking for the practical evidence of an affair, the things that would hold up in divorce court and social judgment. In Jennifer's car, tucked under the driver's seat, I found a second phone. It was an older iPhone, probably a burner device. When I powered it on, I found months of text messages between Jennifer and Daniel. The early messages were innocent enough, reminiscing about college, catching up on mutual friends. But they quickly escalated into something that made my stomach turn. The photos were particularly damning. Jennifer in lingerie I'd never seen, Daniel shirtless in what looked like a hotel room. Intimate shots that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. I photographed every message, every image, every piece of evidence. Then I carefully returned the phone to its hiding place and went about my weekend as if nothing had happened. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the downtown library. Using their computers and printer, I created a comprehensive dossier of Jennifer's affair. Hotel receipts, phone records, photographs of the secret messages, everything organized chronologically and professionally presented. The file was 43 pages long. That afternoon, I made 2 copies. One went into a safety deposit box I'd opened at a different bank. The other went into my truck's glove compartment, ready for the right moment. The right moment came sooner than expected. Tuesday evening, Jennifer announced she'd be working late again. "Big project deadline," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Don't wait up." Instead of going to Murphy's, I drove to the Hampton Inn downtown and waited in the parking lot. At 6:47 p.m., Jennifer's Honda pulled into a space near the back. At 6:52 p.m., Daniel's BMW joined it. I watched them meet at the hotel entrance. Jennifer looked nervous, glancing around as if she sensed she was being watched. Daniel looked confident, placing his hand on the small of her back as they walked inside together. I waited until 9:15 p.m. when they emerged separately. Jennifer left first, checking her reflection in her car's mirror before driving away. Daniel followed 10 minutes later, talking on his phone and laughing about something. They thought they were so careful. They thought they were so smart. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I made a decision that surprised even me. Instead of confronting Jennifer directly, I decided to gather intelligence on the other players in this drama. Daniel Hayes had always been a mystery to me. The successful ex-boyfriend who'd moved to California and built a tech empire. But social media made everyone's life an open book, and I was a quick study. Daniel's Facebook profile showed he'd moved back to Cleveland 6 months ago. His LinkedIn indicated he was doing freelance consulting for local businesses. His Instagram revealed he was dating someone named Ashley Morgan, a nurse at Cleveland General. Ashley was beautiful in a way that made Jennifer's attractiveness seem ordinary. Blonde, athletic, with the kind of smile that suggested she genuinely enjoyed life. Her social media was full of hiking photos, restaurant reviews, and couple shots with Daniel that dated back 8 months. She had no idea her boyfriend was cheating on her. I spent an hour studying Ashley's online presence, learning her routines and interests. She volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends. She was training for a marathon. She posted inspirational quotes about loyalty and trust. She deserved to know the truth. But before I could act on that impulse, I needed to handle the family situation. Jennifer's parents, Thomas and Linda Walsh, had always treated me like the son they'd never had. Thomas was a retired electrician who'd taught me half of what I knew about wiring. Linda was a former school teacher who still sent me birthday cards with handwritten notes. They trusted me. More importantly, they trusted my judgment. Thursday afternoon, I called Linda and asked if she and Thomas would meet me for coffee. "There's something important I need to discuss with you," I said. "About Jennifer." We met at a small cafe near their house, away from Jennifer's usual haunts. Thomas looked concerned, Linda looked worried, and I felt like I was about to detonate a bomb in their peaceful retirement. "What's this about, Will?" Thomas asked after we'd ordered coffee. I opened my briefcase and removed a condensed version of the evidence file, 20 pages instead of 43, but more than enough to tell the story. "I need you to see this," I said, sliding the folder across the table. "I'm sorry." Linda opened the folder first. Her face went pale as she looked at the hotel receipts. Thomas leaned over to read the text message transcripts, his jaw tightening with each page. "How long?" Linda whispered. 3 months as far as I can prove. Maybe longer. Thomas closed the folder with careful precision. "What do you need from us?" The question caught me off guard. I'd expected denial, anger, demands for more proof. Instead, Jennifer's father was asking how he could help. "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "I just thought you should know before things get complicated." Linda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're a good man, Will. You didn't deserve this." Neither did Ben. "What about Ben?" Thomas asked. "He doesn't know yet. I'm trying to figure out the best way to handle this." We sat in silence for several minutes, 3 people trying to process the destruction of something they'd all believed in. Finally, Thomas spoke. "What can we do to help?" That evening, I sat in my garage with a beer and the complete evidence file, planning my next moves like a general preparing for war. Jennifer thought she was fighting a battle of deception against a trusting husband. She had no idea she was about to face a campaign of total warfare against someone who'd learned her every secret. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "How's that hypothetical situation working out?" I typed back, "About to become very real." The garage door was open, and I could see into our kitchen where Jennifer was preparing dinner. She looked beautiful and domestic, humming while she chopped vegetables. In a few hours, she'd probably sneak out to meet Daniel, then come home and lie about where she'd been. But not for much longer. Tomorrow, I was going to introduce Ashley Morgan to the truth about her boyfriend. And then I was going to watch Jennifer's carefully constructed deception collapse like a house built on a faulty foundation. Friday morning, I called in sick again and drove to Cleveland General Hospital. According to her social media, Ashley Morgan worked the day shift in the cardiac unit. According to the hospital directory, visiting hours started at 10 a.m. I'd never done anything like this before, approaching a stranger to destroy their relationship. But Jennifer had forced my hand. Ashley deserved to know what kind of man she was dating, and I deserved allies in the war that was about to begin. The hospital lobby was typical medical facility chaos: worried families, tired staff, the smell of antiseptic and cafeteria food. I asked for directions to the cardiac unit and took the elevator to the 4th floor. Ashley was exactly as beautiful in person as she appeared online, but there was a warmth to her that photographs couldn't capture. She was explaining something to an elderly patient, her voice gentle and patient. I waited until she finished, then approached the nurse's station. "Excuse me, are you Ashley Morgan?" She looked up from her chart, and I saw Jennifer's future in her eyes, the trust, the contentment, the complete faith in her relationship. "Yes. Can I help you?" "My name is Will Mercer. I think we need to talk about Daniel Hayes." The change in her expression was immediate. Confusion, then concern, then something that looked like fear. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "I'm married to the woman Daniel's been having an affair with for the past 3 months. The chart slipped from her hands, scattering papers across the floor. Other nurses looked over, sensing drama. "I think you're mistaken," Ashley said, but her voice lacked conviction. "I have proof. Photos, hotel receipts, text messages. I can show you everything." Ashley glanced around the busy unit, then back at me. "I can't. I'm at work. I can't deal with this right now." "I understand. But you deserve to know the truth." I handed her a manila envelope containing copies of the most damning evidence. "Take your time. Look through everything. Then decide what you want to do." She took the envelope with trembling hands. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because we're both victims here, and because I think Daniel needs to face some consequences." I left her standing there, holding the envelope like it might explode. In a way, it would. That afternoon, while Jennifer was at work, I began phase 2 of my plan. Our neighborhood was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business, and gossip traveled faster than the internet. I was about to weaponize that tendency. I started with Margaret Henley, our next-door neighbor. Margaret was 73 years old, retired, and constitutionally incapable of keeping secrets. She was also fond of me because I'd fixed her fence last spring without charging her. "Will, what a nice surprise," she said when I knocked on her door. "How are you and Jennifer doing?" "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about, Margaret. I'm going to need some support from friends like you in the coming weeks." I showed her a condensed version of the evidence, enough to tell the story without overwhelming her with details. Margaret's reaction was everything I'd hoped for: outrage, sympathy, and an immediate desire to tell everyone she knew. "That poor boy Ben," she said, shaking her head. "And after everything you've done for that family. I'd appreciate it if you could let the other neighbors know what's really happening. Jennifer's probably going to try to control the narrative, and I want people to have the facts." Margaret nodded vigorously. "Don't you worry about that, dear. Everyone will know exactly what kind of woman Jennifer really is." By evening, my phone was buzzing with supportive messages from neighbors, co-workers, and friends. Word was spreading exactly as I'd planned. Jennifer came home at her usual time, but something was different. She looked shaken, distracted. Her phone had been buzzing constantly since 3 p.m., and she kept checking it with increasing anxiety. "Everything okay?" I asked as she hung up her coat. "Fine, just work stuff." But her hands were trembling. Around 8 p.m., her phone rang. The caller ID showed Daniel's name. Jennifer glanced at me, then stepped outside to take the call. I watched through the kitchen window as she paced our backyard, her free hand gesturing frantically. Whatever Daniel was telling her, it wasn't good news. She came back inside 20 minutes later, her face pale. "I need to run an errand," she said, grabbing her keys. "At 8 p.m.? It won't take long." She was gone for 2 hours. When she returned, her eyes were red and her makeup was smeared. She went straight to bed without saying goodnight. Saturday morning brought the explosion I'd been waiting for. Ashley Morgan had spent Friday night going through the evidence I'd given her. She'd also done some detective work of her own, apparently, because her social media erupted with a level of fury that was both impressive and terrifying. Her Facebook post was a masterpiece of public humiliation. "To everyone who knows Daniel Hayes, this is the man I've been dating for 8 months. The man I trusted. The man I thought I might marry. Turns out, he's been having an affair with a married woman named Jennifer Mercer for the past 3 months. Here's the proof." She'd posted everything: hotel receipts, text message screenshots, even some of the photos Jennifer had sent. The post was shared 47 times in the first hour. But Ashley wasn't finished. She'd also tagged Daniel's workplace, his family members, and several mutual friends. The comments section was a storm of support for Ashley and criticism for Daniel. Jennifer's phone started ringing at 7 a.m. and didn't stop. She tried to ignore it at first, but by 9 a.m. she was frantically answering calls and trying to do damage control. "It's not what it looks like," I heard her say to someone. "She's lying. She's crazy. Daniel and I are just friends." But the evidence was overwhelming, and Jennifer's denials sounded desperate even to me. Around noon, Thomas and Linda Walsh arrived at our house. Jennifer's face went white when she saw them. "Mom? Dad? What are you doing here?" Linda's expression was colder than I'd ever seen it. "We need to talk, Jennifer. All of us." We gathered in the living room, the same room where we'd celebrated Ben's birthday just 2 months ago. Now it felt like a courtroom. Thomas spoke first. "Will showed us the evidence, Jennifer. We know about Daniel." Jennifer looked at me with pure hatred. "You went to my parents? You involved my family in this?" "You involved them when you decided to cheat on your husband," Linda said quietly. "We raised you better than this." "It's not what you think." "Stop!" Thomas's voice cut through her protests. "Just stop lying. We've seen the hotel receipts, we've seen the text messages, we know exactly what this is." Jennifer broke down then, sobbing apologies and excuses. She claimed she'd been unhappy, that Daniel had pursued her, that it meant nothing. But we'd all heard those words before. Nothing had become everything, and everyone knew it. "I want you to leave," I said quietly. "Pack your things and go stay with Daniel, or get a hotel room. I don't care. But I want you out of this house tonight." "You can't throw me out. This is my house too." "Actually, I can." I pulled out another folder, this one from my lawyer. "I filed for divorce yesterday. Emergency custody of Ben, temporary restraining order, the works. You have 2 hours to pack your essentials." Jennifer stared at the legal papers like they were written in a foreign language. "You planned this. You've been planning this. Just like you planned your affair. The only difference is I'm better at it." That evening, I watched from the front porch as Jennifer loaded suitcases into her car. Neighbors gathered on their lawns, pretending to water plants or check mailboxes while actually watching the show. Margaret Henley had done her job well. Everyone knew exactly what was happening and why. Ben came home from soccer practice as Jennifer was finishing. He looked confused by the crowd of neighbors and the suitcases in the driveway. "What's going on?" he asked. "Your mother and I are getting divorced," I said. "She's moving out tonight." "Because of the affair?" The question hit me like a punch. "You knew?" Ben shrugged. "I'm not stupid, Dad. She's been acting weird for months. Plus, Ashley Morgan posted everything on Facebook. Everyone at school saw it." Jennifer overheard and walked over to us. "Ben, honey, I can explain." "Don't," Ben said, stepping closer to me. Just don't. You cheated on Dad. You embarrassed our whole family. Everyone knows. Jennifer's face crumpled. I'm still your mother. Yeah, well, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to hook up with some random guy. Ben walked into the house, leaving Jennifer standing in the driveway with tears streaming down her face. This isn't over, she said to me. Yes, it is. You just don't realize it yet. She drove away as the sun set, her car disappearing around the corner like the last 15 years of our marriage. The neighbors gradually went back inside, the show over for now. I sat on the porch steps, drinking a beer and watching the streetlights come on. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. How did it go? I typed back. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 starts Monday. Because Jennifer was right about one thing. This wasn't over, not even close. She'd humiliated me, betrayed our family, and tried to make me look like a fool. Now it was my turn. Monday morning brought news that Daniel Hayes had been suspended from his consulting job. Apparently, Ashley's social media campaign had reached his clients, and they weren't comfortable with the negative publicity. His biggest contract, a data migration project for a local bank, had been terminated over the weekend. I learned this from Margaret Henley, who'd heard it from her hairdresser, who'd heard it from Daniel's neighbor. The gossip network was functioning perfectly. Jennifer, meanwhile, was discovering that her own workplace wasn't immune to social media scandals. Consolidated Insurance prided itself on family values and community reputation. Having an HR manager involved in a very public adultery scandal wasn't exactly on brand. She called me Tuesday morning, her voice tight with panic. They're making me take a leave of absence, she said without preamble. Someone sent the photos to my supervisor. That's unfortunate. You did this. You sent them. I didn't have to. Ashley posted everything publicly. Anyone could have forwarded it to your office. This is destroying my career, Will. Good. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to destroy our marriage. She hung up on me, but I could hear the desperation in her voice. Jennifer had always defined herself by her professional success. Losing that identity was hitting her harder than losing me. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor at the job site. Daniel Hayes himself, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His BMW was parked awkwardly near the construction trailer, and he was pacing beside it like a caged animal. We need to talk, he said when I approached. Do we? Daniel looked around at the construction workers who'd stopped to watch our conversation. Privately, I led him away from the crew, toward a half-finished foundation. What do you want, Daniel? I want you to call off your crazy ex-girlfriend. My what? Ashley. She's lost her mind. She's posting lies about me online. She got me fired. She's ruining my life. I almost laughed. Ashley's not my ex-girlfriend. She's your ex-girlfriend. And she's not posting lies. She's posting evidence. Look, I know you're upset about Jennifer, but this has gone too far. We can work this out like adults. Adults don't have affairs with married women. Daniel's composure cracked. You don't understand what your marriage was really like. Jennifer was miserable. She felt trapped, ignored, taken for granted. And you were just helping her find happiness? I was giving her what she needed, what you couldn't give her. Something snapped inside me. Before I could think, my hand connected with Daniel's face in a slap that echoed across the construction site. He stumbled backward, more from shock than force. Stay away from my family, I said quietly. Stay away from my wife. Stay away from my son. If I see you near any of us again, next time, it won't be just a slap. Daniel held his cheek, his eyes wide. You're crazy. You're all crazy. Maybe. But I'm not the one who lost everything because I couldn't keep it in my pants. He retreated to his BMW, fumbling with the keys. As he drove away, I noticed several of my co-workers watching with approval. Word would spread about this confrontation too, and I'd come out looking like the wronged husband defending his honor. Everything was going according to plan. That evening, Jake called with an interesting proposal. You know what you need? He said. A divorce party. A what? A party. At Murphy's. This weekend. Invite everyone you know. Celebrate your freedom. Show the world you're moving on. I don't know if that's... Trust me on this. Jennifer's been controlling the narrative for months, making you look like the clueless husband. Time to flip the script. Show everyone you're the victim who came out on top. The more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea. A public celebration would send a clear message. I wasn't broken by Jennifer's betrayal. I was liberated by it. Set it up, I said. Saturday night, Murphy's Tavern was packed with people I'd known for years. Neighbors, co-workers, old friends from high school, they all came to show support. Jake had outdone himself, decorating the bar with "Congratulations, Will" banners, and even arranging for a local band. The atmosphere was festive, almost defiant. People kept buying me drinks and telling me I was better off without Jennifer. The consensus was clear. I was the good guy in this story. Around 9 p.m., the front door opened and Jennifer walked in. The conversation stopped. The band finished their song and didn't start another one. Every eye in the place turned toward my soon-to-be ex-wife, who stood in the doorway looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She'd dressed up for the occasion. Black dress, heels, makeup carefully applied to hide the stress of the past week. But she couldn't hide the desperation in her eyes. "What are you doing here, Jennifer?" Jake asked from behind the bar. "I came to talk to my husband." "Ex-husband," someone called out from the crowd. Jennifer's face flushed, but she walked toward me with determined steps. "Will, we need to discuss this rationally. We have 15 years together. We have a son. We can work through this." The entire bar was listening to every word. I could feel the weight of their attention, the expectation that I'd handle this moment correctly. "Work through what?" I asked. "Your affair? Your lies? Your complete betrayal of everything we built together? I made a mistake. I know that. But people make mistakes. Marriage is about forgiveness. Marriage is also about fidelity and honesty and respect. You threw all of that away for Daniel Hayes." Someone in the crowd snorted with laughter. Jennifer's flush deepened. "I'm willing to end things with Daniel," she said. "I'm willing to go to counseling. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to save our marriage." "Too late," I said simply. "You made your choice. Now live with it." "You're being cruel." "I'm being honest. Something you should try sometime." Jennifer looked around the bar, seeing the faces of people who'd once been her friends. Now they were looking at her like she was something distasteful they'd found on their shoes. "Fine," she said, her voice breaking. "But don't think this is over. I have rights. I have a claim to half of everything we built." "Actually, you don't." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of the prenuptial agreement she'd signed 15 years ago. "Remember this? You insisted on it because you thought you'd out-earn me someday. Turns out it protects me instead." Jennifer stared at the phone screen, her face going pale. That can't be enforceable." "Talk to your lawyer. I'm sure he'll explain how adultery clauses work." She left without another word, pushing through the crowd toward the exit. The door slammed behind her, and after a moment of silence, the bar erupted in cheers. Jake raised his glass. "To Will Mercer, a man who knows how to handle his business." The crowd echoed the toast, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: genuine happiness. But the evening wasn't over. Around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but this isn't finished. You'll regret humiliating her like that." I showed the message to Jake, who frowned. "Daniel?" "Probably, or one of Jennifer's friends." "You worried?" I looked around the crowded bar, at all the people who'd shown up to support me, at the community that had rallied around the wronged husband against the cheating wife. "No," I said. "Let them come. I'm ready for whatever they want to throw at me." I had no idea how prophetic those words would be. The anonymous threats continued throughout the week. Text messages, mostly, sent from different numbers but all carrying the same theme. I was going to pay for destroying Jennifer's life. Someone was very angry about my successful revenge campaign. I showed the messages to my lawyer, who advised documenting everything but not taking any direct action unless the threats became more specific. Angry people say stupid things, he told me. Most of the time, it's just hot air. But I wasn't taking any chances. I installed security cameras around the house, changed the locks, and made sure Ben knew to call me immediately if anything seemed unusual. The precautions proved wise when I came home Thursday evening to find my garage door spray-painted with a single word: liar. I called the police, who took a report but didn't seem particularly concerned. Probably just neighborhood kids, the officer said. Divorce brings out the worst in people. But I knew better. This wasn't random vandalism, it was escalation. Friday afternoon, I received a call from Jennifer's lawyer requesting a meeting. My client would like to discuss a settlement, he said. She's prepared to make some concessions in exchange for your cooperation in ending this publicity campaign. What kind of concessions? She's willing to accept a smaller financial settlement, and she'd like to arrange a more amicable custody arrangement for Ben. I agreed to meet Saturday morning at his office, curious to see what Jennifer was really offering. The law office was downtown, in one of those glass towers that screamed expensive legal fees. Jennifer was already there when I arrived, sitting across from a man in a $1,000 suit who introduced himself as Richard Morrison. Jennifer looked terrible. The stress of the past 2 weeks had taken its toll: dark circles under her eyes, weight loss, the kind of exhaustion that makeup couldn't hide. "Will," Morrison began, "my client recognizes that emotions have been running high. She'd like to find a way to resolve this situation that's beneficial for everyone, especially Ben." "I'm listening." Jennifer leaned forward. "I'm willing to give up any claim to the house. I'll take minimal alimony. I'll agree to joint custody instead of seeking primary custody of Ben." "In exchange for what?" "Stop the public humiliation. Tell your friends to stop posting about me online. Ask Ashley to take down those Facebook posts. Let me rebuild my life with some dignity." I pretended to consider the offer. "And Daniel? What happens to him?" Jennifer's face tightened. "Daniel and I? That's over. It's been over since this whole thing started. Because Ashley exposed him? Because I realized it was a mistake. A terrible mistake that cost me everything." Morrison slid a document across the table. "These are the terms we're proposing. Very generous, considering the circumstances." I read through the settlement offer. Jennifer was essentially giving up any claim to our assets in exchange for my agreement to stop harassing her and her associates. It was a complete capitulation. "I'll consider it," I said, standing up. "Give me a few days to think it over." "Will," Jennifer said as I reached the door, "I know you hate me right now, but we were happy once. We built something good together. Don't let this destroy everything." I looked at her for a long moment. "You already did that, Jennifer. I'm just cleaning up the mess." That evening, I called Jake and told him about the settlement offer. "She's desperate," he said, "which means you're winning." "Maybe, but I keep thinking about what she said, about us being happy once." "You feeling sorry for her?" "No, but I'm wondering if I've gone far enough. Maybe it's time to accept the victory and move on." Jake was quiet for a moment. "You know what I think? I think you should throw one last party. Invite everyone over to the house. Jennifer, Daniel, all their friends, all your friends. Have it out in the open, once and for all. Let everyone see exactly who these people are." That sounds like a terrible idea. The best ideas usually do. But the more I thought about it, the more appealing it became. A final confrontation, on my terms, in my house, with witnesses. A chance to end this drama definitively. Sunday morning, I started making calls. The party was set for the following Saturday, a reconciliation dinner, where Jennifer and I would supposedly work out our differences. I invited her parents, Daniel, several mutual friends, and a few key neighbors. I told everyone we were going to clear the air and move forward as adults. Of course, I had no intention of reconciling with Jennifer, but she didn't know that. I spent the week preparing the house for what I privately called the final show. I moved anything valuable to a storage unit, set up additional cameras, and made some special preparations that would ensure the evening was memorable for everyone involved. Jake thought I'd lost my mind. "What exactly are you planning?" "Nothing illegal. Nothing violent. Just a little demonstration of what happens when people underestimate William Mercer." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting. Trust me." Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of October evening that made you want to stay inside. Perfect weather for an intimate gathering of enemies pretending to be friends. Jennifer arrived first, carrying flowers and wearing the kind of hopeful expression that made my chest tighten with something that might have been guilt. She dressed carefully, the blue dress I'd always liked, her hair styled the way she wore it on our first date. "Thank you for doing this," she said as I let her in. "I know it can't be easy." "We'll see how it goes." Thomas and Linda arrived next, followed by Daniel, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The other guests trickled in over the next half hour, a carefully selected audience for the performance I was about to give. We gathered in the living room, the same room where I'd confronted Jennifer 2 weeks earlier. The atmosphere was tense but polite, like a funeral where everyone was pretending the deceased wasn't really gone. "I want to thank everyone for coming," I began, standing near the fireplace. "Jennifer and I have been through a difficult time, and we thought it would be good to have the people we care about here as we try to work things out." Jennifer smiled hopefully. Daniel looked suspicious. Thomas and Linda exchanged glances. "Before we start," I continued, "I think it's important that everyone understands exactly what we're dealing with. So I've prepared a little presentation." I turned on the wall-mounted TV and started the slideshow I'd created. Hotel receipts appeared on the screen, followed by text message screenshots, then some of the more damning photos from Jennifer's secret phone. Jennifer's face went white. "Will, what are you doing?" "Providing context," I said calmly. "I want everyone to see the complete picture before we discuss reconciliation." "Turn it off," Daniel said, standing up. "This is harassment." "Sit down," Thomas said quietly. "Let him finish." The slideshow continued for 10 minutes, methodically documenting every aspect of Jennifer's affair. By the time it ended, the room was silent except for Linda's quiet sobbing. "Now," I said, turning back to face the group, "let's talk about reconciliation." But before anyone could respond, the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, battery-powered fixtures I'd installed earlier in the week. In the dim glow, I could see confused faces looking around the room. "Don't worry," I said. "Just a little electrical problem. These old houses, you know." That's when the sprinkler system activated. Water rained down from the ceiling, soaking everyone in the room. Jennifer screamed. Daniel cursed. The other guests scrambled for the exits, but I'd locked the front door and pocketed the key. "Will!" Jennifer shouted over the sound of cascading water. "What have you done?" "I've given you exactly what you gave me," I replied, staying dry under an umbrella I'd hidden behind the couch. "A surprise you'll never forget." The sprinklers ran for exactly 2 minutes, long enough to thoroughly soak everyone, but not long enough to cause real damage. When they stopped, I turned the lights back on and unlocked the front door. "Thank you all for coming," I said, as the dripping, furious guests filed toward the exit. "I think we've accomplished what we set out to do tonight." Jennifer was the last to leave, her carefully styled hair plastered to her head, her blue dress clinging uncomfortably to her body. "You're insane," she said. "I'm thorough. There's a difference." She left without another word, and I stood in my empty, water-damaged living room, feeling something that was equal parts satisfaction and exhaustion. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. How did it go? I typed back, Phase 3 complete. Game over. But as I looked around at the soggy furniture and water-stained walls, I realized the game wasn't quite over yet. There was still one more move to make. Sunday morning brought the consequences of Saturday's dinner party. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m. with angry calls from guests who'd spent the evening drying off and plotting revenge. The first call was from Daniel's lawyer, threatening legal action for assault, harassment, and property damage. The second was from Jennifer's lawyer, informing me that all settlement negotiations were off the table. The third was from Linda Walsh, Jennifer's mother, who surprised me by saying, "Well, I suppose they had it coming." But it was the fourth call that worried me. An unknown number, a distorted voice that sounded like it was coming through some kind of electronic filter. "You think you're so smart," the voice said. "You think you've won, but you have no idea what's coming for you. Who is this? Someone who's tired of watching you destroy innocent people." The line went silent. I called my lawyer immediately, but he was less concerned than I'd hoped. "Probably just someone from last night's party," he said. "People say stupid things when they're angry and wet." But I had a feeling this was more serious than angry party guests making empty threats. Monday evening, I was working late at the construction site when Jake called. "You need to get home," he said. "Now." "What's wrong?" "Just get home. I'm already here with Ben." I drove through the October darkness with my heart pounding, expecting to find my house vandalized or worse. Instead, I found Jake's truck in my driveway and lights on throughout the house. Ben met me at the front door, looking shaken but unharmed. "Someone tried to break in," he said. "I was upstairs doing homework when I heard glass breaking. I called Jake instead of 911. "Good thinking. Where's the damage?" Jake appeared from the kitchen, holding a baseball bat. "Back door. Someone smashed the window and tried to jimmy the lock, but your security system scared them off." We walked through the house together, checking every room. The would-be intruder had fled when the alarm started blaring, leaving behind only broken glass and muddy footprints. "Any idea who it was?" Jake asked. "Could be anyone at this point. I've made a lot of enemies lately." But as we waited for the police to arrive, I noticed something that made my stomach clench. The muddy footprints were size 11, same as Daniel's shoes. And there was a small piece of fabric caught on the broken glass, blue denim, like the jeans Daniel had been wearing Saturday night. The police took a report and promised to patrol the neighborhood more frequently, but I could tell they weren't taking it too seriously. "Probably just random vandalism," the officer said. "These things happen." After they left, Jake helped me board up the broken window while Ben called his friend's house to arrange a sleepover. "You should stay somewhere else tonight," Jake said, "just in case they come back." "I'm not running from Daniel Hayes. This might not be about running. This might be about staying alive." But I'd made my decision. I was done being reactive. It was time to take control of the situation once and for all. Tuesday morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day preparing for war. I installed motion sensors around the perimeter of the house, set up additional cameras, and prepared some surprises that would make Saturday's sprinkler system look like a gentle rain shower. If Daniel wanted to play games, I was going to show him what a real game looked like. Wednesday night, he made his move. The motion sensors detected movement in the backyard at 2:17 a.m. I watched on the security monitors as a figure in dark clothing approached the house, moving carefully to avoid the main cameras. But I'd hidden cameras everywhere. The figure was definitely Daniel. I could see his face clearly when he passed under the motion-activated floodlight. He was carrying a crowbar and what looked like a can of spray paint. I let him get all the way to the back door before I activated the first surprise. The sprinkler system I'd installed specifically for this occasion wasn't connected to the house's water supply. Instead, it was connected to a tank I'd filled with a mixture of water, liquid fertilizer, and green food coloring. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Daniel screamed as the foul-smelling green liquid soaked him from head to toe. He dropped the crowbar and stumbled backward, slipping on the wet concrete. That's when I activated surprise number 2. The industrial-grade leaf blower I'd mounted under the deck roared to life, filled with biodegradable glitter I'd bought from a craft store. The effect was like a glitter bomb exploding in slow motion. Daniel was now soaked in green fertilizer water and covered in sparkly glitter, stumbling around my backyard like a confused disco ball. I stepped out onto the deck, wearing rain gear and holding a spotlight. "Evening, Daniel." "Lovely night for breaking and entering." He looked up at me, his face a mask of green slime and silver glitter. "You're crazy, Mercer. You're completely insane." "Maybe, but I'm not the one trespassing with a crowbar." "This ends tonight," he said, trying to wipe glitter from his eyes. "I'm tired of your games." "So am I. That's why I called the police 20 minutes ago." Daniel's face went pale under the green coating. "You're lying." "Am I?" In the distance, we could hear sirens approaching. Daniel looked around frantically, realizing he was trapped in my backyard, covered in evidence of his attempted break-in. "You set me up," he said. "You set yourself up. I just provided the consequences." The police arrived as Daniel was trying to climb over my fence, leaving green handprints on the white pickets. They found him in the neighbor's yard, still dripping and sparkling, trying to explain why he was covered in fertilizer and glitter at 2:30 in the morning. The arrest was everything I'd hoped for and more. Daniel's mugshot, green-faced and glitter-covered, would become legendary in our neighborhood. The charges included breaking and entering, attempted burglary, and trespassing. But the real victory came the next morning, when Ashley posted the mugshot on social media with the caption, "This is what happens when karma catches up with cheaters." The post went viral locally. Daniel Hayes, the smooth-talking tech consultant who'd stolen another man's wife, was now known throughout Cleveland as the glitter burglar. Thursday afternoon, Jennifer called for the first time since the dinner party. "You've destroyed him," she said without preamble. "He destroyed himself. I just documented it. The man I fell in love with would never have done something so cruel. The woman I fell in love with would never have had an affair. I guess we both changed. What do you want from me, Will? What will it take for you to stop this war?" I thought about her question for a long moment. What did I want? I'd already won everything that mattered. Jennifer's reputation was ruined. Daniel was facing criminal charges. I had custody of Ben, the house, and the support of everyone who mattered. "I want you to disappear," I said finally. "Move away, start over somewhere else. Leave Ben and me alone to rebuild what you destroyed." "And if I do that? If I leave Cleveland? Will you stop?" "There won't be anything left to stop." Friday morning, I received a call from Jennifer's lawyer. She was dropping all claims to marital assets and accepting a minimal custody arrangement, supervised visits only, and only if Ben agreed to them. The lawyer's voice was professional, almost relieved, as if this outcome had been inevitable from the start, and everyone was finally ready to stop pretending otherwise. Papers would be filed, signatures would be exchanged, loose ends tied off with legal precision. "She's also agreed to relocate," the lawyer said. "She's found a job in Phoenix. She'll be gone by the end of the month." I thanked him and ended the call, sitting there for a moment longer with the phone in my hand. There was no surge of triumph, no sense of vindication, just a quiet finality, the kind that settles in slowly, like dust after a demolition. Something heavy had been lifted, even if the shape of it would always remain. That evening, I sat on my front porch with a beer, watching the neighborhood kids play in the street. Their laughter echoed between houses, carefree and loud, the sound of lives unburdened by adult consequences. Ben was at soccer practice, and the house was quiet for the first time in weeks. No tension, no waiting for the next phone call, no low-grade anxiety humming beneath everything. The porch light flickered on as dusk crept in, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe all the way in. Margaret Henley walked over from next door, carrying a plate of cookies covered with foil. "I heard Jennifer's moving away," she said, handing me the plate like it was a peace offering. "News travels fast." She smiled, but there was sympathy behind it. "It's for the best. That boy of yours deserves better than having a mother like that around." I nodded, though part of me felt something that might have been sadness. 15 years of marriage doesn't end without some regret, even when the ending is justified. You mourn not just what was, but what you once believed it could become. "You did the right thing, Will," Margaret continued. "Sometimes good people have to do hard things to protect what matters." After she left, I sat there a while longer, watching the sky darken, letting her words sink in. Saturday morning brought one final surprise. A moving truck appeared in front of my house, its diesel engine idling like an unwelcome memory, and Jennifer emerged from a rental car looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her movements were stiff, mechanical, as if she were operating on nothing but momentum and adrenaline. She knocked on my door, but I watched her through the security camera without answering. I saw hesitation in the way she stood there, the small hope that I might open it, that we might exchange words that could soften the ending. After a few minutes, she gave up. She bent down, placed an envelope on the doorstep, then turned back to supervise the movers without looking back. The envelope contained a handwritten letter. "Will, I know you'll probably throw this away without reading it, but I need to say these things. You were right about everything. I was selfish, dishonest, and cruel. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I thought I deserved something more exciting. I was wrong about Daniel, wrong about our marriage, and wrong about you. You're a better man than I ever deserved, and Ben is lucky to have you as a father. I hope someday you can forgive me, not for my sake, but for yours. Carrying hate will poison you the way selfishness poisoned me. Take care of our son. Take care of yourself. Jennifer." I read the letter twice, slowly, carefully, as if the words might change if I looked hard enough. Then I folded it and put it in my toolbox next to all the evidence I'd gathered. Not because I was ready to forgive her, but because someday Ben might want to know that his mother was capable of remorse. By evening, Jennifer was gone. The moving truck disappeared around the corner, taking the last remnants of our marriage with it. The street looked the same as it always had, but something invisible had finally cleared. Ben came home from a friend's house as I was grilling burgers for dinner. "So it's just us now?" he asked. "Just us. Is that okay?" He shrugged in the way teenagers do when they're trying to appear casual about something important. "Yeah, it's okay. She made her choice." We ate dinner on the back deck, watching the sun set over the neighborhood where I'd lived for 15 years. Tomorrow I'd go back to work, back to building things instead of tearing them down. Ben would go back to school, where he'd face questions about his mother's departure with the kind of resilience that made me proud. And somewhere in Phoenix, Jennifer would start over with nothing except the knowledge that actions have consequences, and some choices can't be undone. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Victory dinner at Murphy's." I looked at Ben, who was doing homework at the kitchen table, and typed back, "Rain check. I'm exactly where I need to be." The war was over. I'd won everything that mattered and lost nothing I couldn't live without. Jennifer had come back after 5 years, just to say hi, and now she was gone forever. Sometimes the best revenge is simply surviving long enough to watch your enemies destroy themselves, and sometimes, if you're very lucky and very careful, you get to help them along the way.